the meeting in order. And attendance, we have all board members present. Aaron Cook will be virtual. And we are now going to go into executive session. Board now meet in executive session pursuant of ORS 192.6602B to consider the dismissal or disciplinary of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public office, employee, staff member, or agent unless he or she requests an open meeting. To consider the records exempt by law from public inspection, which allows the board to meet in executive session. Okay, we're now in executive. Okay, looks like we're good to go. Okay, first we had consideration of an item we discussed in closed session. We heard a report from our non-discrimination coordinator and had information provided us by the complainant. Now entertain a motion concerning the complainant appeal.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I would move that the board accept the final decision of the superintendent in this matter pursuant to board policy and to not call a hearing in this matter.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we pursuant of policy that we follow on the complaint, that we go with the recommendation of the administration. Is there any discussion, further discussion? Okay.
I think it's only maybe worth mentioning that board member Ort recused himself from the discussion in closed section.
Good point, good point. Yes, board member Ort was not involved. Okay. Here, because of that unique situation, I'm going to go with a roll call vote on this. So we'll go with a roll call. So Debbie?
Okay. I'll start with Aaron.
Yes.
Tom.
Aye.
Derek.
Aye.
Phil.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Aye.
Owen.
Yes.
All in favor.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, agenda review. Entertain a motion concerning the agenda.
Move that we accept the posted agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the posted agenda. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Aye.
A little delay. Okay, and we'll have our student representatives, Mariah and Kaya.
Hello, my name is Mariah Wacker. I'm a sophomore and one of the ASB school board representatives for Silverton High School.
My name is Kai Hawley, and I'm a senior and the other ASB representative.
On behalf of Silverton High School students, we would like to thank the first responders, district staff, Silverton High School staff, and our administrators for their support and help during Friday's incident.
We also want to thank our parents and guardians for your support and guidance as we navigate the situation. We are so thankful to be part of the community that has offered so much support and help and resources, and we are looking forward to moving together. We are all one at Silverton High School. Thank you very much.
Now for some important updates of the happenings at our school. I am very excited to announce that we are in full swing of Best Fox Ever, with the pageant coming up this Saturday, April 19th at 7 p.m. Tickets can be purchased from any contestant or at the door the night of. Come watch the show and see who will be crowned the Best Fox Ever 2025.
Our contestants for Best Fox Ever 2025 are Cordelia Bay, Kai Hawley, Alexis Fenimore, Ryder Britton, Jada Ridgway, Grace Hayashida, and Khalil McElfresh.
We are very excited for this talented group of seniors to work hard in organizing school and community fundraisers.
An upcoming fundraiser to look forward to is the pickleball tournament that we are hosting has been rescheduled for this Friday. Sign-ups are still open, and you can sign up by the QR codes on the posters or by calling Silverton High School. Grab your pickleball buddy and participate in this doubles competition.
Transitioning to our performing arts at SHS, the theater department is working on the spring play, The Actor's Worst Nightmare. More information to come on this next month. Our band has a concert May 20th and has been busy with competitions this past month.
Concert choir is doing amazing and is going to state competition next month on May 9th. Ben McQueen and Brooke Summers also recently got to sing in a national honor choir hosted in Texas. Coming up on April 24th, there is an open mic showcase, and anyone in performing arts is welcome to attend.
Our clubs and activities at Silverton High School are continuing their success through the spring as well. Speech and Debate is working hard and preparing for the OSAA Speech State Competition, April 24th through 26th. 9 students qualified and will be competing with their speeches. Our clubs meet once a month on Tuesdays at the high school during AG and other times outside of school as well. Our spring sports are in full swing with track, basketball, softball, tennis, and golf all doing extremely well in their competition seasons.
Baseball is first in the conference and 6th in state. Softball is 4th in the conference and 16th in state. Our track team is running strong and has meets Wednesday and Friday. Girls and boys golf is doing good with both having a match on the 21st. Girls and boys tennis has also been playing very great and has duels on the 15th.
Check out the OSAA website and Silverton Athletics Instagram page to follow upcoming games to cheer on and support our Foxes this season.
We want to make sure everyone knows that we continue to post information about upcoming events and happenings at Silverton High School on our social media pages through Facebook and Instagram, as well as the high school website and on Parent Square.
We are excited about what's in store for the rest of the school year, where we focus to be great Foxes who exemplify our Fox values of respect, dignity, compassion, and inclusion.
Thank you everyone for all of your support and hard work to ensure we have the best school year possible.
Now here to talk about FBLA, FFA, and Skills USA are their student representatives. Go Foxes!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Squeeze in here.
Alrighty, hello everybody. My name is Logan Gray. I'm the current Silverton FFA chapter president. And here with me I have Carter Titus, our current sentinel, Matthew Bielenberg, our current treasurer, and Travis Kenzie, our newly elected treasurer, and Aiden Shecker, our newly elected sentinel. We're here today just to talk to you about some of our recent accomplishments, one of which we were just at state convention a couple of weeks ago. We had a really successful weekend. I'm just going to read some of the contestants and placings off for you right now. So our Parley Pro team placed 4th in the state. That was a really good placing. And then our extemporaneous public speaking, Levi Schroeder, placed 2nd in the state. Public speaking, Aubrey Leo placed 8th in the state. Sophomore public speaking, Travis Kenzie placed 7th in the state. Beginning public speaking, Samantha Sharpelos placed 7th in the state. Creed speaking, Ellie Schneider placed 5th in the state. And then our marketing plan team consisted of Lucy, Violet, and Olivia, and Isabel. And then we had a farm and agribusiness management team, which consisted of Matthew, Chase, Travis, and Caden. We don't know their placings. And then we had a series of books compete. So our reporter and secretary all make books of what our chapter has been doing. So our secretary book placed gold, treasurer book placed silver, scrapbook placed gold. And then we also applied for the National Chapter Award, which we placed gold and will be competing nationally with. And we also got Superior Chapter Award. And then we had 3 students compete in proficiencies. That was Chase Stoddard, me, and Matthew. And then in co-op quiz, Matthew Bielenberg placed 1st in the state, and Caden Emmert placed 3rd in the state. And then for our freshman information tests, we had 5 students compete. And then we had 2 teams for agri-science, Serenity and Violet, and then Carter and me. And then we had 8 state FFA degree recipients: Audrey Gardner, Aubrey Leo, Elise Gardner, Carter Lance, Chase Stoddard, Malachi Vole, Nathan Detweiler, and Wyatt Mallory. So we had a really, really successful weekend, and we're really proud of all the students and their hard work that they put in to get there.
All right.
I'd like to say
ahead.
that the state degree is the highest award that the state association can bestow on individual members. I'd also like to talk about the skills that our individual members have been learning in the shop and applying to real life. This past Friday, we competed at Skills USA at the state level, where we had a team in welding and fabrication placed first in the state, where they will be moving on to nationals in Atlanta at the end of June. We also had an individual place fifth in the state with their welding sculpture, and we had many other individuals compete in the individual welding contest. Next Friday, we have our Silverton High School Shop Day, where we have our Silverton High School students compete against their peers to see who is the best welder amongst them. And they compete to win prizes and to meet industry professionals and in hopes to secure a job in the future. Next Thursday and Friday, we have the Lynn Benton Community College Welding Contest, which is open to the entire state and is hosted at Lynn Benton in Albany, and we can take 8 members of our chapter to go down there and have a weld-off amongst other people throughout the state to see who's the best welder and to try to compete for the great prizes and to win, meet great people in hopes to secure jobs in the future. Also, the next Friday, I believe it's the 25th, we have the Schmecketus Shop Day, where our students show off the skills they learn in the shop: the welding, cutting, electrical, plumbing, the skills that you would need in working jobs. They compete to win prizes and just to show off their skills to future employers throughout the area.
Excellent.
Also, we would like to invite you guys on May 17th to our FFA chapter banquet. At our banquet, it is here at the high school at 4 o'clock on the 17th, and we recognize all of the members who have competed throughout the year or been active in FFA, and also we instate our new FFA chapter officers. So you guys are invited to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's dinner, and you guys will have an opportunity to talk with FFA members. We also have our plant sale coming up. Our greenhouse and gardening classes work very hard to plant different plants, and that sale is the 2nd and 3rd of May, as well as the 9th and 10th of May in Mrs. Baker's room. You guys are welcome to come buy plants, some flower pots if you guys are interested in that. And actually this Friday, as Matthew had said, we have a Silverton welding competition. This is the first time we've done one of these in years, and it'll be hosted by the Silverton chapter. We've been putting that together for students who want to showcase their welding abilities, and they'll have an opportunity to show those off and win prizes as well.
So I'd also like to talk a little bit about CDEs. So CDEs are career development events that our members get to participate in. And so those are currently going on here in the spring. Our members are working and preparing for these competitions. And through that, they're gaining valuable skills, both hard and soft, skills that can be taken into a career in an industry that they enjoy to work in. And so this takes place typically around May 5th and 6th at OSU, where we get to compete against all the other FFA schools in the state of Oregon. And so this is a great opportunity for our members to gain valuable skills and also to meet industry professionals and secure jobs for the future.
We want to thank you all for inviting us here tonight. We really appreciate all of you, and we hope to talk to you again soon. Next up will be Skills USA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
Good job.
Hi, my name is Kasaya Hart. I am a senior at Silverton High School and a student in our Health Occupations program. Here to talk to you a little bit today about health occupation CTE at Silverton High School and the recent Skills USA competition. Health Occupations is a program at Silverton High School meant to prepare students for a career in medicine. In the program, we learn about medical science, the legal and ethical sides of medicine, how to take vital signs, medical math, and the qualities of a healthcare provider, among other things. In addition to academic work, Health Oc students also spend a significant amount of time doing clinical shadow experiences in the community at various clinical places, including Silverton Hospital, different family medicine clinics, a dental office, a funeral chapel, and even a veterinarian clinic. These rotations allow health occupation students to apply what they learn in class to real work settings and explore possible healthcare careers. In addition to career preparation, the Health Occupations program prepared students more immediately for the recent Skills USA competition. For those of you who don't know, Skills USA is a national organization focused on promoting career and technical skills that hosted a statewide competition this past Friday and Saturday. Health occupation students were incredibly successful at the recent competition. I personally won the state title for medical terminology, and my Health Knowledge Bowl team, which is like a health trivia competition, won first in the state and will be traveling to Atlanta for nationals in the summer. Also, several of my classmates won second or third place in similar competitions. Even outside of Health Occupations program, the Silverton High School CTE program was incredibly well represented at the Skills USA competition. We had students place or even win state titles in computer programming, firefighting, welding, photography, protective services, crime scene investigation, and more. Overall, Silverton High School students receive a comprehensive and hands-on education through our CTE program and were thoroughly prepared to succeed in competition against public and private schools alike throughout the state.
Hello, I'm Nathaniel. Hello, I'm Nathaniel Lawton, a junior in the Protective Service Program and a member of Skills USA. This year in my firefighting class, I've learned about the functions and skills necessary to become a firefighter and the qualities and character it requires. My future plan is to attend Chemeketa Community College and earn my paramedic firefighting degree. It is from learning and experience that I was prepared for the Skills USA contest, where I won the state firefighting skills contest. We have more than 35 people in the contest, from big schools like West Salem and South Medford to smaller schools such as Dayton. Silverton took 1st, 4th, and 6th and is the best firefighter program currently in the state of Oregon. Without this CTE class, I would not have had the opportunity to explore my future occupational options and may have not even have been introduced to it. Thank you for supporting programs currently and into the future. It's helped a student from Scotts Mills, such as myself, become a state champion.
We passed out a list of awards given at Skills USA this past weekend if you were interested in looking into it more. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Both of you
Congratulations.
guys were state champions. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really
Awesome.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
That is very
well done.
great job.
Hey, Taryn, I believe you're up for Central Howell and Pratum report.
I've never used this clicker, so wish me luck.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Taryn Wold, and I'm the principal at Central Howell and Pratum. This is my second year there at both schools, and I'm really excited to share with you all the wonderful things we do there. So I'm going to start by spotlighting Central Howell. Look at that, I did it. Central Howell is a K-8 school. Our current enrollment has increased from last year. We're up a few students, and we continue to have a large amount of people who want to come to Central Howell, which is amazing. We love our school, and we are very proud of our school. You'll see our current class configurations up there. We are down one classroom teacher compared to last school year. You'll also notice that all of our classes are blends this year. And due to having one less classroom teacher, some of our older classrooms are a little bit larger. You'll notice, for example, Mrs. Herb, who has a 4-5 class with 35 students and is doing an amazing job. And we invite you to come in and check out her class anytime. She is absolutely outstanding. Our staff is very supportive of each other. We are a team, we work together, and I'm very proud of all the people I get to work with. I know this is a little wordy, but I'll go through our school goals a little bit more in depth. All of our school goals are aligned to district goals. Our first goal is aligned to reading. Our second goal is math focused, and our third goal is social and emotional learning focused, with an emphasis on positive behavior interventions and supports. So I'm going to start by talking about our K-5 students and their reading achievement so far this school year. All of our teachers utilize our projection maps to ensure that we are following Oregon State standards. We meet with our district PLC teams to ensure that we are supporting each other, and we review student goals and progress throughout the year to ensure that our students are making growth. So you'll notice at the beginning of the year, this assessment that we utilized and where this data came from is our district's DIBELS assessment. So in September, 45% of the students in K-5 at Central Howell were reading at or above grade level. And then you'll notice mid-year when we took that test again in January, 52% of our students were reading at or above grade level. So we've increased. I've set a pretty high goal for us. I remember Kim at the beginning of the year going, whoo, girl. Yeah. But I know we can do it. So our goal is by the end of the year to have 78% of our K-5 students reading at or above grade level. We'll get there. I know the data doesn't necessarily show all these things, but I did want to point out a couple of exciting data points. Speaking of our large 4-5 class, the fourth graders in that class moved from 59% to 82% of students meeting the benchmark for oral reading fluency from fall to winter this year. And our fifth graders, this is awesome, 80% of our fifth graders have a DIBELS composite score that is at or above benchmark. So even with the large class size, we're making a ton of growth. Moving on to K-5 math achievement. So this data is from the iReady assessment. iReady is our district math curriculum that we utilize. So at the beginning of the year in Central Howell, 8% of the K-5 students were at or above grade level according to that assessment. And then in January, you'll notice we made a big jump. So 31% of our students were at or above grade level in math in January. Our goal is to get to 65% by the end of the school year, and we're halfway there, well on our way, and we'll continue working hard to get there. Moving on to our middle school. So our middle school assessment that we use to determine students' progress is the STAR assessment. So we have the STAR assessment for reading. In September, 72% of our 6th through 8th grade students were reading at or above grade level. We did have a small dip in January. We're at 69% of our 6th through 8th grade students reading at or above grade level. But I will say, as a former middle school teacher, who's given the STAR assessment, sometimes we do see that dip mid-year where the assessment is adapting and you necessarily haven't taught all the standards yet, and so students struggle a little bit until they have learned all the standards. By the end of the year, our goal is to get to 80% of our students at or above benchmark in reading for middle school. Moving on to math achievement for our middle schoolers at Central Howell. So 67% of our students were at or above grade level in math at the beginning of the year. And again, a small dip, nothing I'm too worried about. I know we're going to make a great growth by the end of the year. We are at 64% in January, and our goal is to make it to 75% by the end of the year. So one of our school goals is related to social and emotional learning, and our school utilizes positive behavior supports and interventions, also known as PBIS, to encourage positive behavior at school. We also have monthly character counts assemblies. I know there's a lot of things on those lists. Sometimes it's hard to think of, to narrow down all the wonderful things that we get to do to celebrate our students, but I'll point out a few of them. Last year, we did a full implementation of a PBIS-focused behavior framework. We also have a PBIS team at Central Howell, which includes myself, classroom teachers, our counselor, and some assistants. One thing we do at Central Howell that's pretty fun is we do a weekly Monday moment, all school assembly. We had one today, and we recognize students and staff and classes. Our custodian gets to give out the Golden Broom Award every week. Our music teacher gives out the Golden Music Note. Our PE teacher gives out the Golden Shoes, and a recess staff member gives out the Golden Jump Rope. And literally all of those things are gold, literally big golden shoes and everything. So it's pretty fun to give those out. We also do 2 big school-wide celebrations every year. So in January, well, it got pushed back a little bit due to snow, but we got to do a glow dance party in the gym, which was pretty exciting. And we'll do another school-wide celebration at the end of the year. Another important PBIS implementation is that we have our school-wide expectations, which are taught and reinforced consistently throughout the year. We also do a school-wide walkabout 3 times a year where we target different areas of the school and reteach those expectations. We also utilize Google Forms as a way to quickly track behavior data, and then all of that data is entered in Synergy, so that way we're able to go back and see who we might need to support a little bit more. Some of the great things, there's lots of great things happening at Central Howell, but I'll just point out a couple of them. This year and last year, we implemented middle school electives. With only 2 middle school teachers, that gets a little bit hard with scheduling, but we've been very creative. Mrs. Marshall and Mrs. Basil are doing a phenomenal job, and they are doing leadership class for our 8th graders. There's an art class. Recently, they started a Lego robotics class, and we also have an agriculture program. Mrs. Marshall has all kinds, if you've ever been to her room, all kinds of eggs and different animals that they hatch, as well as a fully functioning greenhouse. We'll get to add some raised beds to that for the whole school to use here pretty shortly, but it's pretty amazing, and we invite anybody to come on out and see that. This year, we dove in to improve K-5 reading district-wide, but also very much so at Central Howell. We've been partnering with our school district literacy team and our Oregon RTII coach. We're providing training and ongoing support for our staff. I'd like to give a shout out to our literacy coach, Liz Limbird, who comes and helps us dive into data and really focus on what we need to do to improve literacy instruction. She also trained a lot of our assistants this year in some intervention programs, and we've been able to offer daily 30-minute reading intervention groups targeted on phonics instruction, and we've seen a huge improvement in student reading K through 5. Also this year, continuing a little bit, but we were able to add 100% meetings, which is a K-5 meeting focused on core literacy instruction. And it's a team-based decision, and we really focus on what we're doing well in core teaching and what are the areas we want to work on. So this winter, each of our classroom teachers met with our team and came up with some goals to work on. And I really think that that's helping improve literacy instruction. We also do 3 20% meetings each year, and that's where we look at 20% of our student population who may need a little extra support academically or socially, or even with attendance. And we work as a team to determine what those areas are and how we can support those students. We also do care team meetings, which are more individualized, and we look at those meetings at really what we need to do to support individual students. Also at Central Howell, we have K-5 Playworks, so that's a recess program for our students, like a lot of our other schools have in the district. But one thing we're really proud of at Central Howell is our junior coach program for our 4th and 5th grade students, and they're able to go out and support our younger students out at recess, can help initiate games to make sure everyone's included. They have vests that they wear, and they have lanyards, and they feel very official. It's a great way for them to feel included, but also like a leader at school, and that's been a really fun program to see implemented. Whoops, there we go. Our families at Central Howell are absolutely wonderful. They're supportive and caring, and couldn't do what we do without them. You'll see some of our parent club officers there, Jen Tickner and Kelly Piper. They were at Kindergarten Roundup last week, helping us welcome our incoming kindergarten students for next year. Some of our family engagement events that we do, we have a big back-to-school night in August. We also do a wonderful annual holiday music program in December. And then about 2 weeks ago, we did our first Title I reading night and really got a really good response for that. You'll notice some of the things our parent club does. Those are just a couple of them. They go above and beyond to support our school, and we're so thankful for them. They're working on a huge track project right now. We have wonderful parent and family volunteers who come in and volunteer within our school with whatever is needed in classrooms or in the office even. And then we do a weekly Cougar Chronicle, and that's our weekly newsletter that we send out to parents every single Friday with the events for the next week, all kinds of announcements, and we recognize, again, our Golden Awards and really highlight some of the amazing things our students are doing. I did ask a couple of kids their favorite things about Central Howell. I won't read all of them, but you can definitely hear their personalities coming through and the things that they like about Central Howell. My favorite is I actually like it because I like spelling. Our kids are wonderful, and it was just fun to hear from their perspective the things that they enjoy about school. And there's a few pictures of our kids. You'll notice some buddy reading going on. One of the wonderful things about K-8 schools is you get to have that connection from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. So lots of buddy reading and buddy opportunities. You'll see some students working in our greenhouse up there. Some of our middle school students showing off their agriculture projects at reading night. And then there's a fun one up there with a student with a big old beard, and that was a role swap day with his teacher. All the students dressed as adults and the teacher dressed as a student, so that was pretty fun. So that's what I have for Central Howell. Any questions regarding Central Howell before I discuss and spotlight Pratum? Okay. All right. So Pratum School is also a K-8 school, a little bit smaller than Central Howell. Again, our enrollment is up this year. So last year we had about 68 students. We're up to 71 currently. We have 3 classrooms at Pratum. So our K-1-2, which we affectionately call the little room, is Mrs. Bukite's class. Then we have the middle room, which is our 3, 4, 5 class, and the big room, which is our 6, 7, 8 class. And as you can imagine, it's challenging teaching 3 grades all at once in every single subject, but our teachers are absolutely amazing and make it look like it's just no big deal. Just like at Central Howell, our school goals are all focused on reading, math, and SEL, and they're aligned to our district goals. I'll go into more detail since that's pretty small. Okay, so starting with K through 5 reading achievement at Pratum in September. Again, this is according to Dibble's data. 53% of our students were reading at or above grade level at the beginning of the year. Mid-year, when we did our check, 73% of our K through 5 students were reading at or above grade level. So we are near our end of the year goal, which is 80%, which is very, very exciting. Some data worth noting. All the students in our 4th and 5th grade class are reading at or above grade level right now at Pratum School. It's pretty amazing. For math, again, this is based on the iReady assessment. In September, 33% of our K-5 students at Pratum were at or above grade level. In January, mid-year, our check was at 64% of K through 5 students at or above grade level. So again, we made a big jump. Our goal for the end of the year is to have 75% of our students at or above grade level. And an interesting point and really exciting point worth noting, no students in our K through 2 class are showing well below grade level. They're either slightly below or at or above grade level. Okay, so our middle schoolers, at the beginning of the year, 84% of them were at or above grade level, according to the STAR assessment. Mid-year, we were at 88%. And that's really tricky when you're already high to make growth, and those students definitely did. Again, we have amazing staff, and they work really hard to make sure even our highest students are showing growth. By the end of the year, the goal is to get to 90% of students reading at or above grade level. At this point, for reading, we have no students in intervention in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at Pratum.
That's great.
For math, this is exciting. At the beginning of the year, we were at 85%, again, really high achievement. And mid-year, we're at 90%, so we actually met our end of the year goal mid-year, which is very exciting. And same thing with our reading achievement at the middle school level. We have no students needing intervention at those grades. Similar to Central Howell, Pratum also has been working on implementing PBIS. Where at Central Howell, we have PAWS. At Pratum, we have Pirate Bucks as our incentive. Some of the PBIS incentives are slightly different. We do a weekly Friday circle, which is similar to our Monday moment at Central Howell. But again, we do monthly character counts traits. We focus on those and award students monthly for the monthly character counts trait. That's also reinforced through our monthly guidance lessons. And just like at Central Howell and around the district, we do a lot of behavior data tracking so we can support our students and figure out best avenues to support them. Some wonderful things happening at Pratum. Our big room, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders have been working on their own greenhouse and are working on getting that up and running. It's all set up, and now they're just trying to figure out all the things that they want to put in there and get going. We also have a K-5 reading intervention program going. I'd like to say huge kudos to my staff. We don't necessarily have a reading coach, but they have just dove in and done the work themselves this year, which is pretty amazing. We're making sure that we're doing phonics screenings and additional reading support for any of our struggling readers K-5. Also, at Pratum, we do our 100%, 20% in care team meetings. And something exciting at Pratum this year was the school lunch program. This is new for us this year that we've been able to offer lunch to every single student at Pratum. And you'll see, hearing from students, that they really like it here more momentarily. Here's some of our Mrs. Martinson, which you probably already know. She's our wonderful office manager at Central Howell and Pratum with some of our amazing parent volunteers. Just like at Central Howell, our parents are absolutely outstanding, and they have really helped us keep the school running efficiently this year. They help in our office every single day when Mrs. Martinson works at Central Howell, and they've just been integral in making sure that our staff and our students are supported every single day. Our parent club is hard at work all the time. We had our pancake breakfast on Saturday and are excited to hear what the results are of that. And you'll notice I didn't even cover all the ways that they help us, but our community is very supportive. We also have our weekly Pratum Press, so that's our weekly newsletter that we send out to our families through Parent Square every single Friday. So some of our Pratum students and why they love Pratum, you'll notice, I like lunch, the food's good, so that's an exciting one. But it's really fun to, again, hear what are the things that they really, really love and hear their perspective. Some of our students, I have to give a shout out to Mrs. Slavin, one of our assistants, who's an amazing photographer and takes photos of our kids, and she really captures their personalities really, really well. So, any questions about Pratum or Central Hall, I guess?
I do, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm kind of inputting on the spot on this because I'm trying to understand a few things.
Okay.
Great results, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm looking at the state report card.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if the metrics that they use are the same ones that we use for our assessments here. So like last year, they said Central Howell was at 25% math proficiency, and then Pratum was 70. And then they also have science metrics here, and I don't know, they have like Central Howell at 7% and Pratum at 36. Are they doing different testing or results for that stuff?
So those results, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, those results are based on state testing, on the Oregon State Assessment, where the results that I'm sharing are all of our
The star
district
dibbles, okay,
assessments,
gotcha.
correct? Which, you know, those are the ones, I don't want to discount the Oregon State Assessment,
Yes.
but it's really important. I mean, our district assessments are important to us and really give us accurate data about where our kids are 3 times a year, where that Oregon State Assessment is a little trickier. They take it once and then we don't get the data till the next year.
And they can opt out of that?
That is correct,
Do they
yes.
opt out of the star and dibbles? I don't think so.
No, those ones we do not, but we can provide accommodations to make sure that every student is able to access the assessment.
So those are much better metrics of what you're giving us versus the star. I appreciate it. Thank you.
In my opinion.
And mine as well. Yes, I
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And go Pirates and go Cougs.
That's
Okay. Okay, Silver Falls Education Association, you're up.
The events of last Friday turned this small community upside down. As educators, we hope to never have to experience this, but we also have to be mentally prepared in case it does happen and we need to act. We are thankful for the swift actions of the Silverton Police Department and other law enforcement agencies that responded to ensure our safety. Additionally, we appreciate the district and school administrators who sprang into action on a moment's notice. Their tireless efforts over the weekend do not go unnoticed. Thank you. You're welcome. At the high school today, it was a day to process and to check in with our students. We were grateful to have a delay in order to connect with other staff members this morning and for guidance in navigating the day. Moving forward, it will be a delicate balance between allowing time to heal and returning to our normal routine. In the wake of all of this, we also have a new contract to negotiate. We are working on rescheduling our bargaining session from last week, which was supposed to be Friday, so that we can advance our already scheduled session on April 23rd. We're hoping to change that to this Wednesday. We look forward to a productive and collaborative negotiation this year. The SFEA bargaining team this year includes Sheldon Lazier, who's representing middle school and SPED teachers, John Harrington representing district specialists, Aaron Scott representing K-5 teachers, Emily Rayo representing K-8 buildings and high school teachers, and myself representing ELD and high school teachers. And finally, we want to acknowledge the 3 SFEA members who worked on the calendar draft that you will see tonight. It's Elena Mandish, Allison Alston, and Stacy Harker. We appreciate the extra time that they put into this project. Any questions for us? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have something to say. Sorry, guys. I apologize. It was just, I wanted to just acknowledge, the whole thing was going down with the students, honestly, I forgot about the teachers and how hard that must have been. So I thank you guys. That was not easy. So appreciate you there being for all the kids and especially mine. So that was probably a lot to ask of you guys. So you guys did great.
We just do. We take care of our kids, and then we fall apart later. But we just, yeah, we're very pleased with how, that's a weird way to say it. In a horrible situation, we're very glad it turned out the way it did. ideally, we would not want to have to go through this.
Yeah.
But the kids were amazing. They did it incredibly well. All the teachers, everybody, it went well. So, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we have our first public comment part of the meeting. We're glad you're here and welcome to address the board with your ideas, concerns, or compliments. Please keep the following in mind. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand to be recognized by the board chair. If attending remotely, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. For the record, please provide your name and relationship to the district. Please keep individual remarks to 3 minutes. If speaking as a representative on behalf of a group of 3 or more, comment time will be extended to 5 minutes. A second public comment period will occur later in the meeting that is specific to discussion and action items only. The board will not hear complaints against individual district staff or board members during public comment. Please understand the board's primary role is to listen, and will not likely receive an immediate response. Finally, remember, we all model the way of our students, and ask that you share your thoughts respectfully in accordance with the Silver Falls School District Board Decorum Agreement. Do we have anyone present that would like to speak? Do we have anyone online?
We have no hands raised online.
Once more, anyone here? Okay, we'll move on. Administrative and staff reports. And Kim, looks like, Kellison, it looks like you're up with superintendent report.
I think I gotta retrieve my
Clicker.
clicker over there. Oh,
Infamous clicker.
feels good to stand up. Okay, well, all kinds of good stuff tonight. This is our April report first. So tonight I'm gonna review, we're getting a lot of questions about state law versus federal law and all the different things that are impacting us from the federal level right now. So I'm gonna, Tony, don't grade me, Tony, because Tony is an attorney, but I'm gonna go through a little bit, I did run this by the attorney first. I'm gonna go through a little bit of education law so that you just have a background in it. I think it's good for everyone to know, including employees and, you know, community members, like how that actually works. I included in your packet some updated guidance from OSBA and ODE that came in recently. I'm gonna address First Amendment rights, and then we're gonna get an update on the electric bus. So education law, state versus federal. So education laws reside primarily with the states. So in the early federalist system, the federal constitution does not include any provisions for education. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act was added in 1965 to the Constitution to provide support for education through categorical grants. And actually, the first support for public education from the federal government were in the early, I don't know, probably late 1800s, early 1900s, in the way of land grants. So public institutions were granted land to build schools on. And then came the categorical grants. So categorical grants are things like Title I, IDEA, which is another category of support for students, which was added in 1975. And that provides services and funding for students with disabilities. States are tasked with managing laws and policies that govern public education, not the federal government. So when we get mandates from the federal government, that's kind of confusing sometimes, but in order to keep categorical funding grants, we have to comply with the requirements from the grant. Other interesting facts, so Title I funds, those are a categorical grant, and they provide funding for students in high poverty communities for reading and math support. Sometimes we think, sometimes title is just referred to as reading, but it actually is for math as well. IDEA provides funding for students with disabilities. I talked about that earlier. I have an error on this because I checked with Kim about the number. So all the federal grants that are in our system, they are about $1.45 million to the district each year and are an important part of our budget. Title II and Title III provide other federal support related to teacher effectiveness and English language acquisition support. And this information that I got was from the Law and Special Education. That's a textbook by Yale that I'm using for Class Hub right now. Any questions on this? Because I just really wanted to kind of lay it out that, you know, there's a baseline from the federal government that just, those are state driven things. So any questions on that? Okay. How'd I do, Tony? So the latest update from ODE included in your packet instructs superintendents to continue to follow state and federal law. So we were given a mandate from the federal government about certain things related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, you know, there have been several like Dear Colleague letters which come in from the federal government. They come in from the U.S. Department of Education. But when you read that, I put that whole chapter in your book or in your board book on SPED law. It talks about how those letters do not take precedence over state law or federal law. So they are like recommendations. They aren't necessarily laws because they haven't been through the process yet. And we're actually going to talk about federal funding a little bit because you guys have asked for it as a discussion item. I'm just trying to lay the platform for you for when you have that discussion. That, you know, it's important to note that the threat to eliminate federal funding for programs like Title I and IDEA is really not something that ODE is going to entertain. And so they have asked us as superintendents to continue to follow state and federal law that's already in place. Budget implications. So I think it's good to put into perspective. So we talked about the $1.45 million in federal funding that the district gets for those categorical grants. But the district receives $45 million from the state school fund and other state grants, a little more than 45. So our state funding is dependent upon our following state law and guidance from ODE. And so when I ran this by OSBA, you know, I mean, I think when you're talking about budget implications, the impact to state funding is much greater if we do not do things in the way that we're supposed to, that follows state law. I wanted to address First Amendment rights for students because we've had a lot of chitter chatter about this online. And I think that it's just really, this is a good time to talk about this. And if you have any questions about this, please ask. But sometimes we have students and staff members that they have the desire to, you know, express themselves. And so the First Amendment protects that right for students and staff. And it's essential to fostering an environment of free expression, open dialogue, and intellectual growth. Both students and staff members are entitled to express their views and beliefs without fear of censorship, as long as their actions do not substantially disrupt the educational process or violate the rights of others. So there's a caveat there that, you know, you can wear what you feel is appropriate for yourself, but if it disrupts the educational environment, then that's when it becomes a problem for the district. And so I think that's important to note, that we would never restrict rights for students or staff. So for instance, if we had a student that wore a Go Biden hat during the election, like, we would never restrict that unless somebody got in a fist fight in the cafeteria over it. Then that would be a disruption. I mean, that's probably a really simplified way to talk about it. But I mean, I think when you're looking at those types of statements that people make sometimes, I think it's important to note that they do have First Amendment rights. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that component of our educational system. But it cannot be disruptive. And so that is the major qualifier in that. Any questions on that?
No, I would just note that part of the problem with that statement is that the response and whether there's a restriction depends as much or more on the response of third parties as it does on the person who's making the expression of free speech. So it gets difficult then to be put in the position of having to decide whether or not that's protected free speech. But
Yeah, it's not a fun place to be.
right, it's tough.
Yeah, it's not a fun place to hang out. I think it's just important to note, you know, we live in a really heavily charged political climate now, and so we're forced with talking about these difficult things all the time. And, you know, my stance as a leader in our community is to, you know, I'm trying to get people to come into the middle, and, you know, we need to govern our school district from the middle. So we can't be far left or far right. I've talked about this many times in open session here, because, you know, we're serving all students, and we want all students to feel welcome and loved in our building. And I mean, it was so obvious how welcome and loved our students were on Friday when they were leaving the building with their teachers taking such great care of them. So I think that was a real great display of, you know, students that feel really comfortable with their teachers. And I'm already getting survey results from kids from Friday, you know, with giving feedback saying, my teacher was a rock star that day. My teacher took care of me. My teacher made sure I felt safe. And so I think, you know, this is part of that. Like, we want students to feel like they belong and like they're part of the community. So, any other thoughts, questions? No? This is a Tony thing. Book review policy update. Do you want to give them a little brief snippet on that?
Thank you, members of the board. We have a policy committee now that meets regularly. The last few weeks, of course, have had some challenges with being able to continue a lot of the meetings at the pace we would like. But nonetheless, we have a committee that includes members of the administration. We also have public members on it. Admittedly, we are still working on the regularity of attendance of public members, which can often be a challenge with committees that have both staff and public members. But you'll see, like, for instance, later on in the agenda, we see several special education policy updates. In addition to that, we had at the last policy meeting begun the discussion on the book review policy. One of the complications of this policy is that you know, books are used in several different ways in schools. There's core instructional materials, there's supplemental classroom instructional materials, there's library materials, and there's even classroom library materials. So there's several pieces of this review policy. And as we were reviewing the policies as recommended by the School Boards Association, they created them in several different, they almost created a separate policy or procedure that goes with each of those policies for each of those different categories of areas. And that becomes a challenge, because you could adopt, you know, each of those policies separately. But there's one of the problems with that is that there's a point where you almost legislate too much, right? And when you do that, it can actually sometimes be more confusing for the people who are trying to implement it. So one of the things we began doing at the policy committee was start looking at ways that we can do some, what I would call, meaningful consolidation of those. And we got through, you know, so for example, the policy committee, the last one we had, we spent about 2 hours just reviewing that policy or that series of policies. And then at one point we stopped so that way we could at least get some of the special ed ones done. So where we're at right now is I'm taking the information that we received in that committee, and I'm thinking of that in light of those 4 different areas that there were policies and procedures put in place. And I'm doing some consolidations, some opportunities to think about the nuances of one type of book review versus the other. Like, for instance, we know that there is a substantive difference between what might be core instructional materials, which are governed primarily by state law, you know, in ODE's regulations, versus that which might be supplemental for a teacher in a classroom versus what could be a classroom library, which is totally a little bit more discretionary. So it's a complicated process of reviewing this policy. And I think the complication of it just mirrors what we're seeing in the community, right, across the country, right? This is not an easy area. to address. So we're just mirroring what's happening all over the country. So in doing that policy, I feel it's going to be most comfortable if I go back to the next policy committee and actually review with that committee what this looks like in sum total before I would bring it to the entire board, because that policy committee are the people who are going to be implementing it, right? And then, of course, there'll be the opportunity to talk about then what the board's role in that policy is, because there are, excuse me, depending on how you read the policies that we've seen from not only with the OSBA recommended policy, but also the policies that we've seen other districts implement, you will see a variation in what, as far as the degree that the board is involved. Like in some cases, it's really more a matter of, again, making sure we're policies and procedures followed. And some boards have actually gotten within the policies, they've actually been very specific about what the standards are that superintendents and librarians would use in making those determinations. We have to determine for Silver Falls, what line does, where does that line fall for us as a school district, right? So I think a strong first piece would be to have that committee feel comfortable on what they're saying and then bring that to you for then that discussion here. So stay tuned on that one. But we do have some perceived policies later for you to review with special ed. So
This one was just really complicated, and when we started, like, we had other, copies from other districts, and some of them were 4 and 5 pages long. So trying to figure out, what we thought was good to have in the policy and what was not needed, and I mean, it just, and then we had to go to the one of us had to go to the wrestling senior night. So we're like, well, we tried really hard to get.
Yeah, we lost some members. There were a small handful of us by the time it was over.
Yeah, so we didn't get as far as we thought we would. We're getting close though.
I have one on this one, and just for the complications of this, to my knowledge, Senate Bill 1098, the Freedom to Read bill, they got out of committee. It's onto the Senate floor for voting, so that might completely change any of the work that we do in that committee, because it becomes law. Essentially, that bill is just trying to limit a little bit of the authority that a school board would have regarding some of the literature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's almost like we should almost wait when it comes to this to see what the government does, because why spend all the time working on it when what we develop we have to redo?
Yeah. And the parts I've been working on are actually the parts that I think are going to be our pieces that aren't necessarily implicated by the upcoming bill, right? Because that way you got to get started on it, right? So, but there will be some pieces that are similar to the challenge we had with the Title IX rules, right? Where we were operating one set of rules, then we started developing policy to update to the 24 regs, and now the executive order came back and they came back to something different. Talk about the law conversation. See, that's an example where even though the law is quite clear, the Dear Colleague letter, where it has an implication on us, because the one thing the administration can correct is who is actually the people that are hired in the executive branch of what they're doing. So all the discussion we've heard about this is really related to the Office of Civil Rights, because that is an area that the president, as the executive chief, can direct them, and like who are you going to go, who are you going to go investigate? It was very interesting because 6 months ago, the investigations that were directed by the Office of Civil Rights, and this could come up as, believe it or not, this could come up as a book review issue too, right? Talk about expression, right?
Right.
So, 6 months ago, the civil rights work in that OCR department, we call them, they were really focused on, where government was limiting the expression rights of people. Now it's kind of flipped. So now you see what OCR is going after primarily right now, the universities, where they're saying they're not following or they're being too open and expansive in the expression rights that they're having. So it's another one of those examples. You can write policy, but there are some pieces of it that you have to watch how it's going to be implemented.
And to your point, Josh, that's where we end up with always the policy revisions, because every legislature things change, and that's why the string of ORSs and everything that they're referred to and everything. So it's a waiting game. Never know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then, Greg Newman. Hi, Greg. Thanks for being so patient.
Yes. First student.
Yes.
And electric buses.
Yeah, so my name is Greg Newman. I'm the Regional Vice President for First Student. I have our
Thank you.
Transportation Manager, Laura, handing out a quick packet that we put together for the board. Based on some questions that were answered, a little bit of background about our company and our expertise in the field. And on the very back, it's a timeline of if we accept the grant from PG&E, what those timelines look like, as well as the funding from the grant and the difference in the funding versus the actual cost. So real quick, we're the leader in electric buses in the US and Canada. We have over 450 electric buses on the road, and we just celebrated the 6 million mile in an electric bus. We have 2,000 buses, electric buses, in some phase of execution. So we're really proud of our electric bus program. We have a large team of engineers and funding specialists that we work with in our company that help us continue to grow that area and advance and be innovative in our technologies. On page 3, there's a map of all the electrification awards that we've gotten and what phase they're in. So they're really scattered all over the U.S. And so, a lot of people ask why electric buses. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is obviously diesel buses emit fumes, and electric buses are a lot cleaner. One of the things that we do see with electric buses, they're very quiet. So student management on an electric bus is a lot easier. You don't have kids yelling. You can pretty much hear a pin drop on an electric bus. It's quiet, the kids are well behaved, and it's an enjoyable ride. The buses do have regenerative braking, so when you're hitting the brake, just like a car, it'll slowly recharge that battery. We do have 300 electric buses in Quebec as well. So we have tested it in the harshest of climates, and we haven't had really any issues with that. We are so large that our purchasing power allows us to get really good pricing on electric buses, and we'll go over that here in a minute. On page 5, it goes over the benefits of electric buses, the environmental benefits, the health benefits, noise reduction, and we also talk about emergency response and grid. We do have locations that have so many electric buses. We do vehicle to grid, and so at night, the school buses charge. In the middle of the day, in the middle of the day, the school buses charge. At night, in places where there's not enough power, they can pull that battery juice out of the buses and power towns, and then it'll charge back overnight when people aren't using it. So a lot of benefits to that. In one of your other board meetings, there was a question around safety of electric buses, and I specifically put page 7 on here to answer that. We have not experienced any electric fires or thermal events on an electric bus. They do happen from time to time on a regular bus. They're not that common, but they do happen. We have crash tested the battery compartments. They've passed all the tests. We haven't had any issues with electric buses and thermal events. And we have almost 500 of them on the road. So we are aggressively putting more on the road. And we have our own training programs for the techs, for the drivers, protective equipment for the maintenance techs as well. There is a full list of training that we provide to our teams, as well as getting the manufacturer out to the site to provide a lot of that training on the specialties of the bus. On page 8, it goes over the PG&E award. We're very thankful for PG&E for the award. So they provided us $703,000 for the purchase of the 3 Type C buses, as well as $150,000 in infrastructure. The total cost is $1.278 million. So there is a shortfall in the funding. First Student will pick up the price difference. For us, it's the equivalent of buying 3 new buses. So if I were buying 3 new diesel buses today, that's about what it would cost. It would actually cost a little more than that. So what we would do is we'd pick up the price difference. It wouldn't cost the district any additional funding. On page 10, we do have a group of engineers that work for us dedicated to our EV rollouts and our EV programs. This is a picture of one of our charging stations at one of our locations. It is branded, it is nice. Those barriers are concrete barriers to keep somebody from crashing through the fence and tearing down any of the chargers. So we do reinforce it. We make sure we protect the chargers, and we keep everyone safe. On page 11, it's the timeline, and I did have to make a couple changes here because they put the wrong year, but typically it takes us about 16 months from start to finish to put an electric bus on the road. There's a lot of work that goes on with engineering, site development, picking out the right charger, and also ordering the buses and getting the bus here. As you can imagine, with all of the grants, they didn't have that many manufacturing facilities for electric buses. They have ramped up over the past couple years, so there is a little bit of delay getting a bus. But it takes just as much time to work with the power company to get the site energized and the site work done to put the chargers in. So we're excited about our partnership with PG&E and the grant opportunity. On the very last page, frequently asked questions from the questions we got from the district, questions from the board meeting. So I wanted to put those out there. I'm happy to answer additional questions. But for us, electric vehicles right now, with the advancement of technology, they continue to make smaller batteries that go further. If you can remember the first cell phone you ever had, how big it was, and the cell phones that you have today, they're a fraction of the size and the battery lasts forever. So you're going to see that with the technology as it continues to advance. And we continue to put more buses on the road, and the innovation continues on the batteries. What questions do you have for me?
I've got a couple questions.
Sure,
for you.
absolutely.
I'm curious, you said you have about 500 electric buses in your fleet right now. How many of those were purchased without the aid of any grant funding or any government subsidy funding?
We have a bunch in Canada that were purchased without those subsidies. Most of the ones in the US do have some type of grant assistance. The buses are expensive. They roughly cost almost $400,000 plus the infrastructure per bus. The prices come down a little bit, but you're still talking about $350,000, where a regular bus will normally cost around $125,000, $130,000. So it's about 3 times the cost for an electric bus.
Well, my other question was with regard to the charging infrastructure.
Sure.
I assume here in Silverton, the proposed would be on the school district bus barn property? Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
So, you answered in the FAQ what would happen with the bus, but obviously there's a big investment in the charging infrastructure as well. And so in terms of, the district going with a different bus operator, that's not typically the kind of equipment that would be ripped out.
Yeah, so all of that is subject to conversations that we would have. It's not our intent to rip it out,
Yeah.
but obviously if I'm spending, $300,000 for 3 buses, I don't really want to give you the buses. But there is a conversation that we could have. Obviously, we don't want to leave Silver Falls. But there is a conversation we can have and work out a deal to where if something does happen, we can come to some type of agreement.
Thank you.
I've got a couple.
Sure.
So how many buses is this for again exactly?
3.
3 buses, that's what I thought. Okay, so it's an odd question. I promise, I'm a nice guy, I really am.
No, go ahead.
But why, I'm trying to just figure it out. Why would you eat the $275,000?
Great question. For us, it's like buying brand new diesel buses. So if I'm buying 3 brand new buses, because I have to provide buses here anyway, those buses are going to cost a little more than $274,000. So for us, the cost difference between it actually is a little cheaper to buy those than a new bus. And we're so large, we cascade buses around. So it doesn't really have, when you look at it, you're like, why would they invest $274,000? You know, my response is, we're having to buy new buses somewhere else anyway. We would just put that money into this and move 3 buses somewhere else.
And they're your buses.
Yeah.
The batteries, how long do they last? And
it's-
then who would be responsible for paying for those batteries when we need to replace them?
Well, we're responsible. They do come with a manufacturer's warranty. I don't know what that is right off the top of my head. Right now, we haven't had to replace any of the batteries. They're projected to last 8 to 10 years. And who would be responsible? Whoever owns the bus.
So you guys would be?
Yeah, we would be responsible.
Okay, I think that's what I got for now. I appreciate it.
Yep, no
I'm
worries.
just trying to,
There is one more benefit of electric bus. What we've seen, obviously, you don't have to change the oil in an electric bus. So the maintenance costs are cheaper for an electric bus. So that is one of the benefits for us.
the motors are better too.
Yep.
Any other?
Just about the funding.
Sure.
PGE is offering this to school districts, but ultimately it kind of passes through to your company. Why don't they just offer it straight to the company? I don't understand why we have to be the pass-through.
Yeah, I wish I could answer that question. Many agencies, when they're funding this, they're thinking school buses are owned by the school district. They're not thinking contractors when they're doing it. We have worked with PG&E on multiple grants, and we've done several of these in Oregon. But to answer your question, I don't know. I wish I could tell you the answer to that. I know that we spend a lot of time, our engineers and their engineers, working out getting enough power to the location, which sometimes is really expensive, sometimes it's easy, depending on where the location is and the power coming in. But as far as why they don't go straight through to us, it's probably because they want it tied to the school district, so I don't pick it up, move it out of state.
Yeah. I just think, thank you for coming. It was important to me because I think it's kind of a strange situation,
Yeah.
right? And we need to be able to explain to the public how it works. So I appreciate you coming and explaining it.
No worries. I'm happy to come back whenever you want me to come back. I'm happy to answer additional questions if you have them. And, excited about the project, excited about getting them here. And if you have any questions, please reach out.
I got one more.
Sure.
And this is a comment, and I know when you get moving along, but there was one of the last meeting was we talked about these buses. It said, they're talking about the improvement of the students and how they felt better about being on the nicer buses. So these are going to be probably more reserved for kind of the in-town kids, or there was some comment kind of made about that for the kids who are most vulnerable. But I'll tell you, some of our most vulnerable students are up in the hills. And, they're at 1,500 feet. So it almost felt like to me that we know that those buses probably drain really hard in the hills and on the cold. And so it seems like there might be a perceived disparity because of where somebody lives and who gets to be on the cool bus and who doesn't.
Yeah, as technology improves, you'll be able to take that battery and drive that bus further. Obviously, hills do have an impact on it. We do drive the buses through the hills, and it does have an impact on the battery.
But they get a recharge coming down when they break.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
What is the range on these?
Typically, they're anywhere between 100 to 140 miles on a charge, and when they come back to the yard, they'll put them on the charger.
And
It takes
obviously
anywhere from 1 to 4 hours to charge, depending on the type of battery charger that's selected.
And the miles is determined too by the
Yeah.
grade they go.
And the temperatures.
On your FAQ, it mentioned 17 cents less per mile in one district.
Yep.
Is that just the fuel versus the energy cost? That's not the
Yeah.
comprehensive cost?
No. So the 17 cents a mile is diesel fuel is going up, energy costs are going down, and that's pretty much the savings. It's a lot cheaper to run them.
Okay. Well, done. Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you for your patience of waiting.
No, thank
so
you.
long.
That was great. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Food service update. Kim.
Oh, this is actually Elise. Yeah. Are you still
I
awake?
saw her hiding back there. Apologize to you too, how
You're
long we've
fine.
kept you.
It's fine, it's fine. Good evening. I'm Elise Hansen, currently principal at Evergreen and Victor Point. That will be changing next year. We just wanted to give you an update on where we are with our transition, since we will no longer be working with Sodexo starting July 1. So I have been working, and Kim Dowd has been helping me also work on just kind of making sure we have everything lined up for July 1 for our summer meals. So the biggest is getting food. We have to make sure food is here on site. So we've been working to get those procurements lined up, making sure we have all of the right ones, getting the correct contracts in place. We're almost done with those, just a couple more things to line up. And then we have been working with, his name is Shiloh at the WESD. I'm gonna just call him a nutrition guru. He previously managed all of McMinnville's schools' nutrition programs, and so he's been a great asset to us, helping us make sure we have everything lined up, helping us make connections within our community and other districts. And so just making sure we have everything, since it's been a while since we've self-operated our own food program. He's already come out to the district and met with me, and we regularly communicate via phone or email quite a bit. So he's been really helpful with just making sure we have everything. Another priority of mine has been connecting with the food service staff that we have. So I've scheduled visits for all of those buildings. I want to see a meal service. I want to hear how things are going for them, what questions do they have, what concerns do they have, and even just ideas. They're the ones who are serving our kids day in and day out. Some of our kids, those are the first people that they see because they rely on them to provide them their breakfast. And so just, they have such a wealth of knowledge. So I want to connect with them and just really make sure we understand where they're coming from, the concerns they have, and having them be part of this process. So getting their input. And then I know we've talked about getting student input kind of in the fall once we've settled and figured things out a little bit. And so those building visits are over the next couple weeks. And then just ensuring we are ready for summer. We do plan to do the summer meal program like we did last year. And so we're going to start with Sodexo in June, and then we'll transition to us doing ourselves July 1. So just making sure we have that smooth handoff. And so we've been working with Sodexo just to make sure we have everything ready to go, and we can transition to doing it ourselves. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Got it.
Any
I think it sounded pretty good.
questions?
Sounds really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited about some of the things. I've been doing lots of research of what's out there that we can utilize. There's grants that I'm looking into. So just all of the things that we could do when we manage it ourselves.
I loved hearing that you were going to the schools and talking to the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
I think this can be invaluable information, and just see what they got. Because I know each place has its own way of doing things, because not every school has a kitchen, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Another challenge we have with that one too.
Yes.
One of the things, if I could see that, Kim and I had the opportunity to meet with the food service staff to let them know about the change. And while, as you might imagine, there's some angst, right, always with a little bit of change, but it was very interesting to see during the meeting the evolution of the feelings about that, because by the time we got to the end of the meeting, we had a lot of the employees who were saying, you know what, we're going to make this work. They recognize that they will be a little bit more empowered to do some of the things that they know they have always wanted to do with students. I think they just had to, like anybody, they just had to work through that. But what does that change look like for them, right? So I think I'm kind of excited to see what they do. Yes, it'll be a lot of work. It might be a while before we see what we would call really a positive return on investment. Anything in year one's going to have some challenges, right? But it was very nice to see there. I don't know how you saw it, Kim, but by the end of the meeting, it was pretty positive.
Our food service staff are absolutely incredible. We have some that have been here for so many years, and they have this heart, just like all of our staff do, for those students and making sure that that basic need is met. And I think the idea that their ownership of that will feel very different when it's Silver Falls is, we've always been serving the kids, but we are running this program. I'm extremely excited. It's, again, we also are being very real that there's going to be, learning opportunities as we go through this, but the staff they have the boots on the ground expertise that Elise has really been, setting up those opportunities to lean on them and learn from them, so that this is their program, and we get to listen to them a little differently now because it's in our hands. So very exciting.
I really like that. As a board member, it's hard with both transportation and food because we have contracted that out and we lose a little bit of control. Well, I think a lot of control. And so there's not much we can do financially when that happens that feels empowering, on our part. So I appreciate your work and appreciate all staff's work on this because I do know it's going to be a heavy lift.
But you're right, the situation of buy-in from our employees and utilizing their expertise better than maybe we'd be able to. They probably ran into a few roadblocks, I'm guessing, with trying to share and this sort of thing before. And so, and I've said this often, I can't help but believe that we should be able to run it at least as efficient, if not more efficient, than somebody that's trying to make a profit. We're not trying to make a profit. So.
I like the strategy of starting during the summer, and obviously still important, but maybe a little bit more room for learning opportunities over the summer. So I think that was probably a intentional, wise decision.
I think it's extremely critical to note, though, that Sodexo has been an incredible partner in standing up this CEP program, and very specifically, Tim Lemke, our current Sodexo manager, he cares deeply for this district and the staff, and he has been an incredible partner. This is not a Sodexo concern. This is a programmatic piece that we felt we needed to state. So I want to be very clear that Tim Lemke and Sodexo have been incredible partners, and we are extremely thankful for everything they've done to serve Silver Falls.
It's good to hear.
Does this continue the CEP program doing
Yes,
this?
it does.
Okay. To be clear, that means the free lunches, free stores.
As long as we're getting
Okay.
help from the feds.
Yeah.
That could change it.
That
would change regardless whether it's Sodexo or us.
Does that work? Even if we signed a contract, it doesn't matter, right? Huh.
No.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Did well. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Kim Dowd, Finance and Enrollment.
Perfect, thank you. And Daniel's gonna put up a brief slide show for you here tonight, but our monthly financial report as well as enrollment update is available on Board Book. And I'm just gonna take a couple minutes to go through a couple of highlights here for you tonight. So to start with, this is a little snip from the actual document that you can download online. Again, I highly recommend you view them online so you can zoom in, because these are getting very, very tiny as the year goes on and we get lots of categories that we're reporting on. But this is what we call our state school fund formula sources. These are all of the pieces that go into building the state school fund. Wanted to point out to you just that this piece, we are projecting right now that this category of funding may come in about $48,000 under what was budgeted. That is less than 0.1%. So just letting you know that while we are seeing property taxes coming in a little bit lower, there's a very unique formula in which all of these pieces have a bit of a yo-yo impact on each other. When property tax comes in lower, state school fund could come in higher. And so there's kind of a push and pull on all these, but wanted to highlight that for people, just kind of a way to break down these large documents that are available online. Additionally, in terms of revenue, I wanted to speak briefly to a very complex piece of revenue in school districts. It's known as the High Cost Disability Grant. This is a grant from Oregon Department of Education, and they have $55 million per year into this grant, and that grant is used to reimburse districts for a portion of expenditures over $30,000 per student. So our incredible special education team goes through student by student to identify which students' actual costs exceed $30,000 and by how much. There's a cycle to this high-cost disability grant, and I wanted to show you the 2023-24 school year cycle. So at the start of last school year, way back in October of 2023, districts submit their estimated expenditures for these students, saying we believe across all of our students, the amount above $30,000 within this district is going to be X. In May of the 23-24 school year, so as that school year was coming to an end, we received a payment for our share of that $55 million pot based on the estimates that every district throughout the state sent in. So let's say if they have $55 million and the state says, okay, we all have $55 million all together, we're each gonna get $1 a piece for each of our share. But it's not until March of 2025, 10 months later, that all of the districts then submit what were your actual expenditures for all of those students. And then in May of 2025, that $55 million is, that distribution is recalculated based on actual expenditures. So what I'm showing you are actual numbers for the school years. What does a district estimate statewide? This is across all districts in Oregon. These are the actual estimates that each district put in, and then their actual final reported actuals. So as you can see, we had a 17% increase year over year. We had a 22% increase. We look at these to try to figure out what is this grant actually gonna do in the end. But when it came down to finding out what those actual numbers were for 23-24, they were so far off than the $111 million estimate, and that is a 43% increase over the prior year actuals. And yet the estimates for 24-25 that all of us have put in as well are significantly under those actuals. We know that expenses are not going down for students. So I wanted to share this just to demonstrate the complexities of this movement in this grant. If you have $55 million and it's paid to districts based on their estimates, but then your actuals come in that much higher, clearly what you got as an estimated payment, it wasn't your money to begin with because it essentially got redistributed. So for Silver Falls, our high-cost disability grant, these are our original payments and then our reconciliations year over year. They are literally handing us money to take it back the next year and creating this cycle, right? And it's getting very, very difficult. And so I'm sharing this with you tonight to show that our reconciliation payment for the 23-24 school year that will come next month is not a payment. In fact, they are taking back $481,000 from us next month. So while we could have been handed a grant again this year of $950,000, you're gonna end up paying it back next year. And this yo-yo that has been happening, we discussed this as a team, this is not sustainable budgeting, this is not transparent, and in fact, despite our best efforts to predict what we should truly get, this 24-25 grant payment that we're getting, you can see it dropped because we now, I'll be perfectly honest, we have projected that that's more, let me back up. When we did this, we projected that would be what our grant should be at the end after a reconciliation. If they pay us $900, they're gonna pull back, $420. So let's not even take the $900. Let's just take the $484 right now. Despite our best estimates, we actually now believe that might be too high. And we may still owe some of that $484 back next year. If we were to see anywhere near,
lower.
essentially, yes. So To be very clear, we have spoken at length with Oregon Department of Education, and Superintendent Kellison has taken this all the way around to COSA, superintendent groups. This has gotten a lot of attention, but the reason I'm showing this is that if we think back to that cycle I shared, in May of 2025 this year, we're gonna get our reconciliation for last school year, plus our grant payment for this year. And if you look at those two numbers, 481,000 paid back, $484,000 grant payment, you're now going to see that on our revenue report, our high-cost disability, what we thought was going to be about $680,000 in revenue is now going to be about $8,000 by the end of the year.
Do they make public what districts do what?
Yep.
So.
It is on their
would-
website.
Would probably not be too far off the mark if I said the 10 largest districts probably are budgeting
You know what?
the low number.
And honestly, they're off, right? But their percentage off is not actually, it's surprising actually where it is.
Yeah.
You know, so when you see somebody's estimate at exactly $10,000 and then their actuals are 1.4725, clearly that was just a, don't even send us money now. Just wait until a reconciliation. And I hate to say it, but I wasn't aware there was a game. I hate to say game, but I didn't know that this
It is.
I'm sorry, but we adjusted our estimate. We know very closely what our actuals are going to be, but we don't want to be paid at 40 cents on the dollar because you're probably really in the end only going to pay us 18 cents on the dollar.
So why not take the full amount of whatever you're entitled to and stick it in your savings account knowing that you're going to pay it back and earn your, I don't know what we earn, 4 or 5%.
So we did talk back and forth about that I believe there are some districts who do that because I will say there are districts not a lot larger than us that are paying back $1 million or more than $1 million. And so there are two different ways of doing it. The hard part is this not knowing what that payback is going to be. So, you know, it was something we really talked about back and forth, and in full transparency, we feel like the advocacy needs to be to hold districts accountable to providing estimates that are accurate.
Yeah, because we worked, not me, but Kim and Brandon worked really hard, like trying to find all those costs and really figure out what that costs the district. I mean, they spent hours. Brandon spent 2 months on that trying to figure it out. Like, it's not fair for Brandon to spend 2 months on it and you know, have someone else give some estimate that's completely inaccurate and shows a complete lack of effort to try and figure out what your actual costs are. We did elevate this really high. We took it clear to, I don't know, it might have gone to the governor's office. I have no idea, but it's gone clear through ODE. And so they're working on it. But I think, you know, we talked to other superintendents about trying to make an accurate estimate so that this doesn't happen to districts. But, you know, there were people in that same boat as us that had to pay back $2 million.
Yep. Yeah.
And Kim, if I could just make a comment too, we're looking for every avenue to stabilize our budget practices, right? And this just adds the stability. And to Kim Dowd's point, we don't want the yo-yo anymore. We want something that we can budget, hold to, and have small variances, not those large variances. So this is just good budgeting practices, in my opinion. Like this is a good thing to do, even though we're estimating a lot lower, right? But it might be actually, unless the state really starts dumping more into the high cost disability pool, we need to make sure that we're more accurate with that. And I think this is just a really good practice to stabilize budgeting practices within our district.
And they are talking about increasing that fund. So this is one of the things that's in front of the legislature, and they're talking about moving that to, instead of 55 million, they're talking about moving it to 200 million. But I think when they say 200, I think
For
it's
the
the
biennium.
biennium. So
Correct.
it actually would double the per year amount.
So keep in mind though, if it doubles the pot and the estimates still are not held to an accountability standard, you're still going to get paid too much, you're still going to get too large of a slice of pie, and they're going to come back and take a couple bites out of you, if not more than half your slice. So I have some other chart, and this is a very complex program, but the cents on the dollar is what we're trying to predict. Okay, if they have $55 million, where do we think people's actuals, even ignore those estimates, where do we think actuals are going to come in? So this year, based on prior years, there had been a 17% increase year over year, a 21% increase, an 18%. So I put in there, okay, it's going to go up 22% on actuals. We should get 32 cents on the dollar. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it came in at like
28,
way lower. It went up 43% on actuals. There's no trend line that could have shown that districts would spend 43% more year over year on these students. And so I completely agree that we could take that money and earn some interest on it. I am concerned about the long-term financial stability of this district. The $680,000 I budgeted for this high-cost disability, when I looked at what I call my assumption notes on where did that number come from, it was coming from a $900,000 grant for this year plus a $220,000 payback, not a $480,000 payback, right? So we could have received our $900,000 again and had to pay back another $500,000 or $600,000 next year. I mean, it just, this was something, like I say, we discussed. We feel like, there could be some benefit to having those, like you say, set aside. But we need to know where our revenues are. We need to I kind of feel like this is one of the last pieces that needs to get
Cleaned up.
So
on track.
I remember when we were going through this budget stuff and we talked about high cost disability, because one of those Zoom meetings I had in my office, and it was one of the, so I remember pretty clearly, and we were talking about how much we had gotten shorted. And I specifically remember during the budget that we had set this number very specifically so we wouldn't be so surprised.
Yep.
And to see that we're basically getting paid nothing is like, I'm more than frustrated. So like, Kim, I really appreciate you, going up, because what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I tried.
This is unacceptable. We have to manage our budgets as regular citizens and stuff, and they're doing this junk. And then you got people trying to game the system. Like, that makes everybody get upset and like not trust the system.
Totally.
Well, and I think another element to this that we haven't even really talked about is many superintendents in that meeting shared that the cost to support students is just so much more expensive. So they can't find the correct staffing to handle whatever student need there is. And so they end up contracting some of it out to outside providers, which is extremely expensive. So that they accounted that 40% spike that Kim showed you because districts were having a difficult time staffing that on their own. And Brandon could probably speak better to that, but contracting for services was expensive. So
I have a,
Based on these trend data, we may see actuals close to $250,000 next year when this is reconciled.
Million.
And this is still the $55 million pot.
so I have
yeah, 250 million.
I kind of have a thought and a question. Like, I share everybody's outrage with this, but I'm kind of going back to like what's actually in our span of control. Like, we can't really control what other districts do. We can't really
Right.
control what the state does. So I kind of like, the suggestion Owen had of like maybe we set this in a fund till we actually see the number. And I don't know if that's within our ability to like actually not spend it, but we submit, here's our estimates, and then we get the actuals, and then once we actually find out what we're getting, then we spend, as opposed to being kind of upside down.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what the districts who may put in an estimate of $10,000, knowing they're going to be close to $1.5 million in actuals, they're basically saying, don't even send me an estimated payment.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what
Well,
they're saying.
I mean, I guess that I don't like, because I think that's being dishonest. Like, I think we should present what we think is going to be. The districts are doing that. That's shady.
Yeah.
And it's unpredictable because you
Yeah.
don't know how many people are what kind of expenses they're going to put into that pool. And so, like, it used to be 40 cents on the dollar was kind of common, but now Kim's down 18, 20, whatever the last one was.
I don't have it up in front of me, but it's,
It was
yeah.
low. Way
Yeah.
low.
Super frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, while the increased funding would be incredibly appreciated, right, to help offset some of these costs, this is a systemic programmatic piece that we are addressing.
Yeah,
And
no matter what amount they put in there, it's still gonna have the same math problem.
Yeah, and it's
Budgeting.
still not enough.
How long has it been that the bottom threshold's been 30,000? Is that number ratcheted up over time? Or
yeah,
has
it has.
So I think the 30,000 has been stable for a while, but there has been like a 3-4 year increase where you see this, where the amount you're getting paid on the dollar goes down, and then they bump it up 15 million in the pot, and then it goes down, then the pot goes up another 15 or 20 million over, a 3-4 year period.
Well, you can see if you keep that bottom threshold where it is, then the difference between the actuals and that's going to just grow.
Correct.
You can have
So
more and
those
more
are
students qualifying.
Absolutely. So those are some of the discussions we're hearing is, are they going to bump the threshold to 40,000 to 50,000 per student? And then, that it has great impact, right, on districts that might have a number of kids that hit that 35,000, 40,000 mark, but don't have the kids that hit that. So it is a extremely complex and a bit frustrating, because even when we tried not to get overpaid, I want to be very clear, I do believe the 24-25 grant amount for Silver Falls of 484 is, unless we don't see actuals jump significantly again, I believe that 484 is going to require some payback next year. So I wish we'd known the actuals for this year before we had to commit to our payment amount for this year. So, but with that said, yet there are other areas in which our revenue and our resources have exceeded our budget values. This is where I'm projecting our general fund to end versus the budget this year. I am projecting that even with, I realize that high cost disability piece is huge. There were some other pieces where the revenue is not being realized due to changes in programs, but I am projecting that we are going to end our general fund revenue approximately $200,000 over what was budgeted. And our expenditures are currently projected to come in under budget as well. So despite that loss of that high cost disability revenue, I am still projecting we should end the year above a $2 million ending fund balance. And this figure will change as we complete the final 2.5 months of the year. I believe this is a conservative number, and the continued efforts by our staff and administrators to be mindful of our spending could allow this number to be higher. But I wanted to take this time tonight to point out, specifically that. While it would have been great to have that number be the 600,000 higher or so from the high cost disability grant, we are on track with our revenues, and expenditures are coming in under budget, as you can find in the detailed reports online. So in my final, I want to take a moment to extend a sincere thank you to Silver Falls School District. For the past 8 years, I've been absolutely blessed to serve the staff and the community and the school board and the students of this incredible district and my hometown. At the end of this school year, as many of you know, I'll be starting a new venture. I'm looking to continue to grow my experience, my expertise in school finance, but I am beyond thankful for the support of the Silver Falls community, particularly through the extremely difficult spring of 2024. And as difficult as it was, I'm very honored to have had that opportunity to help be a part of leading the district through. It was a devastatingly difficult financial crisis, and it's still extremely difficult, but being able to help build a long-term plan to get the district on track for financial stability. I'm forever grateful for the relationships I've built with our staff, our board, over these 8 years, and I absolutely will miss working with every one of you guys. So I really extend heartfelt thanks. So appreciate you all.
We appreciate you, Kim.
We appreciate you. I appreciate how you got us through. You were a big part of getting us through as well as we did this past year. And your explanations, hit home to those of us that aren't accountants, and you speak our level, and get that through to us. And you've been very transparent, and you work way too hard and too long. And I wish there was some way just telling you can't go, but I tried that already.
Can we take a vote on that?
And, but we really appreciate everything you've done for us, and you've had a lot to do with making the last year especially as palatable as possible. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll echo that. I think thank you doesn't quite cover it. I don't know what we would have done without your guidance and leadership and diligence in a really, really tough time. And I think leaders are thrown into some of these positions. You were definitely thrown into it, but you thrive and help us make the best decisions in a really challenging time, and very, very grateful.
Yeah.
Kim, I just have to say, I don't. Thanks isn't enough for your hard work, your determination, and just everything you've given to this district and your service. And again, it's nothing shorter than short of just a valiant performance in especially getting us through this past year. And I just again want to say thanks. And your ability to articulate a very, very complex financial situation in school funding, as we know how difficult it can be, and make it very simple for every one of us, not only on the board, but our community to understand, is truly commendable. And you are going to be sorely missed. And again, I thanks isn't the right word, because your just tireless effort to really help right this ship over this past year has just been amazing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I'd say your caring and your competency and your willingness to stick in a tough time, your work ethic, all of that's been remarkable. So really appreciated you personally and professionally, and just so thank you, and hopefully we'll see you on the streets.
And the word that I used when I found out the news is hero. I think watching you during this past year has been amazing. You have grown so much and worked so hard, and truly it's been a privilege to be able to say that I was on the same team with you. And I texted your new boss right away as soon as I found out, and said, "How dare you?"
Yeah, pretty much had nerve to do that.
I haven't talked to him yet, but it might not be pretty. I see him on Thursday in person.
Thank you, Kim. Just can't really add anything to what anyone's already said, but you made some very complex and chaotic situations very explainable to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, Kim, you knew how hard it was to make those choices, and you were having to recommend them. And I mean, you just looking at these actuals and how close you were, you nailed it. You did a good job. So thankful, and I think you started a great trend, and hopefully we can kind of keep this quality going forward. But that's going to be up to the person to try to fill your shoes. They got some freaking big shoes to fill. But I don't say we couldn't have done it without you. So, thank you.
I just have to say it was my honor, because I work to serve. It's not my job, it's my service, and that was what kept me going through this. Is every one of our staff members that I know we're fighting the same fight out there, and I cannot thank the people that I've worked with here enough for the trust placed in me and the opportunity to grow. And never in a million years could I have built anything that would have allowed me to grow the way I have in the last year and a half in this piece. And certainly wish it had been under different circumstances, but I am confident this district is poised for incredible progress. This is my hometown. I am proud to, be part of Silver Falls, and it is It is on track for greatness, as it always has been. So I can't thank all of you enough, so I appreciate it all.
Well, thank you, and it'll be tough. But thank you. Okay, discussion items. And we have board request for football, out-of-state travel. Andy, do you want to? And if you're still hanging in there, again, sorry for.
Well, I just, when Kim texted me, I had just pulled in from the AD conference in Sun River, and I was.
Well, at least you got here.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I don't have it in front of me, but I did put it together, so I'm hoping that you have it in front of you. Yes. Our football program is asking to go to an out-of-state overnight venture up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. 2 years ago, they went down to Sacramento and did the same kind of venture, and looking to repeat that. It has kind of become a lot of the kids, when they go through their senior night, one of their most enjoyous experiences. All of the cost of the trip is going to be completely fundraised, so there's no cost to the district. There is some as things have worked out, there are some very pluses to going. Number one of our own, Sawyer, Teeny, is going to be at the University of Idaho next year, which is very close to where we'll be playing. And the plan is to go to the Washington State-Idaho football game on Saturday, hopefully to get to wave at him on the sideline or in the game. So we're coming to ask you for your permission to allow them to make that trip.
I think it's sort of, I hear you I know from my own coaching experience, annual trips like this, memories are made, kids learn a lot, and it's good team building, even though it's a game for them eventually, but they're at the beginning of the season. I only have one thing. Somebody will want to go through and look at your Saturday schedule. I don't think they're going to make it from Spokane to Pullman in a half hour.
No, they're not. And that was, I let Dan put the itinerary together, and Dan is not really, that's not his strong suit. So that probably needs to be adjusted. They only have one activity that's on Saturday because the game is Friday night. They're going to have to adjust that. And I don't even know if they know exactly what time the game starts that night. So is it 1:30? So they're going to have to adjust things during the day to be able to get over there.
But I saw that and I thought, wow, they've never been to Pullman, I can tell.
I'm going to lay that one on Dan.
So for clarification, the budget's coming out of the football budget, right? And there's going to be no cost to the general fund. It's all fundraised. Is that
correct? Yep. And he puts on, he does a couple of fundraisers, but his biggest one is what he calls a lift-a-thon. And they've been, they've got about a 2 or 3 year average of anywhere from $28,000 to $30,000 in raising in that.
Okay. Any other questions of Andy or anything?
No problem. No, just one, Andy. So, like with other sports, does these trips don't, because they're self-fundraised, they don't cause issues with any of the other programs, do it?
No, no. Our budgets. We don't have anything like this in our budgets. Basically, each program is, transportation officials and stipends. So anything that they do beyond that is their responsibility to raise the funds to do that.
So it's up to them. So
yep. Okay. Yeah, and we got to be careful with that also, because we want to make sure that we're not going to run into any type of a Title IX violation if our girls or even our boys were continually go to Hawaii and the other team couldn't, even though they may make that choice of not going because they don't want to spend the money. Then we'd have to do some rethinking of the one team going so that we wouldn't run into that issue.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for letting me come up and talk with you.
Kim, federal funding for education.
Oh, I think we were just we touched on this a little bit earlier. I mean, I think we were just, concerned about, the potential risk of losing federal funding, due to, some of the ways that Oregon is processing that. And I think that, Oregon has a really liberal stance on how they do things sometimes. And, they have sent a letter back to the U.S. Department of Education saying that, we're going to continue to follow state and federal law, and that's what we're telling superintendents to do. And so they have directed us not to, I still worry about the federal funding. Kim probably does too, but I think it's bigger than us now. It's a whole statewide thing. So I just wanted to alert you to the fact and leave it, give you some time to chat about it if you wanted to. I don't know that there's a lot we can do about it really, but.
We can't do much about it other than give thought to, heaven forbid, what we do if we don't all of a sudden have that 1.45 mil.
So this
Yeah.
is, sorry, Phil, go ahead.
Oh, so that's all, just that, have something in mind, because it's, hopefully it wouldn't happen, but but same token, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
This keeps me up at night because I don't think it's if, I think it's when. I think on the 4th, Supreme Court ruled that the current federal administration has the constitutional legal authority to cancel education grants, and it's happening around the country. So I think us at least having the conversation about the 1.45, what we might be able to do and what that looks like, I think that the time to start at least thinking about that is right now, because it is happening all over the country with institutions that aren't, falling in line with current administration's take on Title IX.
Yeah, there's an article in the Oregon Ed News today. I know you guys probably get that as board members. It comes from OSBA talking about the U.S. Department of Education moving to terminate federal funding for the Maine Department of Education.
Right.
So I think there'll be lawsuits associated with that.
Yeah.
You want to weigh in here, Tony, at all?
To Derek's point, though, like he's mentioned earlier, like we can argue about all the stuff we don't like or like it, go back and forth. But what, as board members, can we actually do? And I think, to Derek's point, like what we can do, we got to prepare for what it might look like if we did lose $1.5 million, and what's our plan if that happens. We can't be like surprised. You got to plan for it and hope it doesn't happen, but we can't be caught red-handed just in case. And this whole thing frustrates me because like, we like Title IX when they changed 2 years ago. We don't like it the way it's changed now, but the same office changed it. So it's like this, this whole thing playing chicken with our funds, I don't like. So that's my personal statement on this, but I would like to have some type of plan of how do we trim 1.5 if we absolutely have to.
Well, I think Kim's budget message was responsive to that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
The
is.
email she sent us about the budget update.
Yeah, I had a lot of information in there, and I think, Kim and I already planned, we already took Title II and Title III out. We used a zero in that area because we really don't think that funding, and we think they're gonna reduce that funding at the federal level. But that doesn't mean we still shouldn't provide services for students in some of those areas, so, we still have employees
Yeah,
in
we'll
place.
still have the kids to serve.
Yeah, we still have kids to serve. That's the real deal. And if they removed Title I funding, we can, hopefully they'll increase early literacy, which would allow us to backfill some of the reading support. But that would mean that early literacy would need to come in at the governor's recommended budget, which is higher, not where it's currently at. So we're still watching all of these things. I don't want to have to do a reduction in force of any kind. We talked about, looking at other expenses in the district to try and, see if we can save money in other places. Talking about, like we moved the community transitions program back into that daycare building, and we're gonna move the daycare kids to Robert Frost so that, it saves us $40,000. That doesn't sound like it's much, but when you do that 10 times, it's $400,000. So, I think you have to look at all those different things. It's really complicated. You know, our property sale is, you know, is proceeding still, like the plat's done, like all that's moving forward. So, you know, I for now, I mean, unless they find some issue, you know, they're doing their due diligence, so that might help us. It's just a lot of unknowns. It's the most difficult budget season I ever recall, because like normally you say, this is our Title I funding from last year, and we're gonna be probably, you know, near that, and you can predict it. But this is completely unpredictable. I mean, I can't, I mean, you know, ODE sent us a letter and said, here's what here's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to follow state and federal law, which does not comply with the executive order that he issued. And so,
Yeah,
a great question.
I wouldn't expect us to resolve it now, but everybody to
No.
be aware and thinking through like strategies that we might be able to implement.
Yeah, and I'll keep trying to send you, you know, everything I have. I mean, I put a bunch of stuff in the board packet tonight for you to look at, so.
Okay. Kim Dowd, the July designation update.
So yes, we wanted to bring up to you tonight that in July of 2024, at the board meeting, there's an annual designation of certain people within the district that have certain rights, but one of those things that's designated is the auditor of record for the school year. In July of 2024, we are not even started on our fiscal year audit for the prior year, of course. But as that concluded, we, in full compliance with our commitment to ensuring that we're following all board policy in terms of procurement and quotes and RFPs, we realized that we were due for a update on our auditor, and so we did send out under the intermediate procurement requirement within board policy, which allows you to go up to a $250,000 level. We did send out an RFQ, request for quotes, for auditors, reviewed all those, and as a result of that procurement process, selected a different auditor than what is in that July designation. So we reached out to Oregon School Board Association to ask for the process on that, and turns out that there really isn't a defined process on this. So per suggestion from both OASBO, Jackie Olson, who is, you know, knows all things, she affirmed that there is kind of not really a process, but to publicly announce that we have moved our auditor designation to Clear Trail CPAs, and just to make sure that we recorded that here in open session in terms of transparency.
Now,
So
they're different than Polly Rogers and Company. Is that true? We're switching, or is this different?
Correct. This is a different company that was actually formed by a very large portion of Polly Rogers and Associates auditors, multiple partners, as well as 18 of their staff members formed Clear Trail CPAs in an attempt to continue to grow this industry. There is a significant shortage of auditors for municipalities. In fact, Oregon Department of Education shared with us, sorry, that was a sign. Oregon Department of Education shared with us that there are still 8 school districts that do not have their 2023-24 school year audits complete, and thus are not receiving any state school funds either. So, you know, this is quite a piece in there. But yes, we awarded the RFQ. It did not require a formal process or any board action because of the intermediate procurement in board policy.
I noticed the primary auditor was the same.
Yes, Kenny.
That is absolutely correct. Yes,
She does a good
yes.
job.
And Polly Rogers gave full blessing, so I have a feeling there might be a workload, you know, issue in some of that as well. Polly Rogers, we did work with them, and they did submit RFQ, and then the other auditors that we asked for actually told us they did not have any capacity to even submit a quote or take on any additional clients. So I'm just happy we have somebody to complete our audits.
Okay, real good.
But no action was required per our guidance.
Okay.
So this isn't, it's not.
Well,
there's
we
no
will
action.
take an action.
So then why are we switching?
There is an action item.
So we are, because of compliance with board policy, because of the amount, we wanted to make sure we were complying with obtaining quotes to ensure we were getting the best price. So through the scoring metric, Clear Trail CPA actually came in. They were all very similar, but Clear Trail CPA was a lower cost.
We'd made that declaration in July before this came about of putting
The
in
procurement
quote out.
process, yeah.
Procurement out.
I'm good.
Okay. Tony, school calendar.
Yes, thank you, members of the board. And Daniel, if you can put up just the draft calendar. In your packet, you also have the report, and I'll just summarize what was in the report. And then really what we want you to see is the draft calendar. So the calendar committee, I met with them, and it included 3 licensed employees, 2 classified employees, 1 principal, Kevin Palmer, and my office. And what we did was we began the process by talking about, of course, what the state requirements are for instructional time. We talked a little bit about the bargaining provisions. One of the complications is that our license bargaining agreement is expiring this year, so it provides a unique situation where we're not positive what could be, but it also gives us opportunity to think maybe a little bit differently about some things, right? Knowing that whatever we come up with in this process will also have some implications as we move forward with bargaining, primarily on the license side. What we did then was we reviewed a few options that I worked with the administrative team in looking at. As you've probably seen with several things this year, that we've been trying to minimize what I would call really substantive changes, knowing what our staff has gone through in the last year, similar to our discussions about professional development, for instance, trying to maximize some flexibility for the staff. So with the calendar, the 2 options that we brought forward to the group were primarily the same as what we would have seen in the current year, with one substantive exception. And that was where the current year's calendar has every Wednesday we have a 1-hour early release time. This calendar recommendation, knowing that we have what I would call significant needs to looking at our reading and literacy curriculum and then the instruction that needs to happen, we know if there's going to be a change to our literacy curriculum, especially with the focus on early literacy, that's going to require a change in some of the curriculum elements we have. For instance, we're looking at 2 different possible additional adoptions with literacy. That'll come up later for you to consider, but we were already thinking about that in terms of the calendar. So what we were looking at was knowing that to do that kind of training, that's a sustained, dedicated training cycle. It's not the kind of training you would do with just 1-hour Wednesdays. 1-hour Wednesday releases are best designed for what we would call routine, regular data analysis, where you're having like PLCs where they're meeting to review things each week. Or if we were focusing on social emotional learning, where a big part of that work are weekly check-ins, where you're talking about how things are going. Literacy development requires some sustained development work, right? To have the opportunity for teachers to receive, several hours of training early on in the year, and then to come back a month or 2 later, have another opportunity to dig into it again and have even some more detailed training and so forth. So, hey, we work in the dark, why not, right? What we did is we brought forward 2 options. One would be, well, what if we had 3 full-day releases to be able to do this work? And then another would be, well, what if we were to spread them out a little bit more, so over 6 days, but only half-day releases? So we talked about that. I will say that, in the report you can see there were several considerations from the committee coming out. The committee could actually not reach a consensus on which of those 2 options would work, primarily for 2 big reasons. One is that just having that type of professional development, there was a concern that it would reduce the opportunity for, particularly at the high school level, for teachers to have that professional learning community time, to still be able to do what we would call data analysis type work. The second piece of consideration for that made it challenging for the committee was that because we don't know for sure yet which of the curriculum that we might be looking at, it was hard to tell which of those 2 models would be best. depending on the type of curriculum you have, one might be favored more toward, taking 3 full days of development. The other model maybe would, be better aligned with having 6 half days. It's hard to know for sure until you know what that curriculum is, right? So those are the 2 primary factors why they were challenged with trying to recommend one over the other. Another piece that came up in that as well is the committee was really focused on thinking more mid to long term. So not just thinking about what next year would look like, but are very interested in thinking about, in a combination with what we see are trends and what we're seeing the student calendar look like, as well as knowing there's some economic considerations that the committee believes it would be just as beneficial to start thinking about what are options down the road. A big one they mentioned, which is in the report, is what about a 4-day student week? Okay, we know that there's challenge with doing something like that this year because we heard from transportation earlier, we still have 2 years on our first student contract. Mm-hmm. There's possibility of always doing a reopener, but the reality is we would go into that negotiation, kind of shorthanded, right? Because they do have a contract, right? But nonetheless, the committee thought, well, let's start thinking about, spend our efforts thinking about what may be more the longer term solution to this, okay? So that was a discussion of the calendar committee, and nonetheless, so the committee did want to provide Kim some suggestions on dates, knowing that at the end of the day, she's got to recommend a calendar, right? So they did come up with some dates, which is really helpful because it did show up in what we have here before you. However, when I did that report to Kim, there was one, because of that concern about professional learning committee time, Kim made the decision, and I agreed with her on it, and I went back to the calendar and said, well, what if we add back, which is a contractual provision that allows the district administration to have up to 5 days where you do have 1-hour release days that are district or school specific. So what we were thinking, what Kim and I were thinking, is this could be a way to still have the sustained development, but provide interspersed amongst those days, having a handful of opportunities over the year to allow at least some of that ongoing professional learning community type activities. So what you see in front of you is a calendar proposal that looks very similar to this year, with the exception being that instead of having early release for 36, or when you think about it, the school year's average around 36 weeks, right? Instead of having all those 1-hour releases, that we would see would be an option that would have 6 half-day releases, but also 5 1-hour early releases in the day. Now, one of the challenges is that does seem a little bit maybe confusing for parents that you're having these half days, but you're also once in a while adding in, a 1-hour release. So there's no doubt about that. But an important piece to think about is because we're all interested primarily in seat time for students. We're always looking at maximizing the amount of instructional time, right? I will say that even with the 6 half days and 5 1-hour releases, that is still more seat time for students than the current model where every week they're missing an hour. Because in a way you think about it, I think the way it ended up being when I did the calculations to think about like their snow days and do we have to make up days, basically what we're doing is we're reducing the 1-hour release days equals about 35 hours of instruction. Okay, if you do right now 5 hours on this model, if you do 5 hours of 1-hour releases, plus what ends up being about 24 hours, 6 days with the 4-hour days, right? You add that and that's still 29 hours. That's still less than the current model, which has 35 hours of release time. So the pros and cons with it is being that still in this proposed model, we're still having more net seat hours for students. The con of it is that the combination of those could bring some confusion to some parents, right? Because you're mixing, some of those days are going to be, so like think of it this way, every other month you're going to have a half day off, and then the alternating months you're going to have one Wednesday where you're released early on, okay? But we felt that it was kind of the best compromise of still being able to allow some professional learning time while also allowing Kim and the curriculum people to sustain professional development. Okay, so that's the model you have before us here. what we would do is we would have this model up. It's a discussion item today. There's no voting on it. We would, starting tomorrow, we would look at posting the option that was presented to the board, and then at a future meeting, we would actually ask for an adoption of the model. But we would also be able then to come back to you with what that feedback is that we received from people. Whether it's community members, teachers, classified staff, because there's a little piece on the classified side, which is primarily for them. It's what 3 days during the pre-service week do they work? Right? Is it the Wednesday through Friday, or do we continue with the Tuesday through Thursday so everybody has that Friday off? Their preference was to do like we're doing now and work the Tuesday through Thursday. Okay, that's a big difference to it. One other benefit of having the half days pieces is that with early literacy development, any of the models that we're looking at, the curriculum models we're looking at, there's undoubtedly a greater role for classified staff. It's an all hands on deck approach, right? Under the traditional model right now, what you tend to see is that teachers get a lot of the focus of the PD. Under this model, we would still have it where we would be able to have the classified members, particularly the IAs, the instructional assistants, join the teachers in this professional development. So that's a definite plus of having either the 6 half days or the 3 full day models. And that was both shared, even the licensed teachers were very adamant that it is important to have the classified staff join us in that work. So that's basically what we have in front of you today, so I'd be glad to take some input. But again, we will post this up. I'll work with Debbie to make sure we get this posted up for consideration, and we'll see what kind of public comment we get on it.
Okay.
So are there questions I can answer?
I don't want to take too long because we're way overdue.
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
so,
But I would just say that I question the keeping of the 1 hour early release if they're not going to be every week. It seems like, I don't know. I don't know how much good that's going to do if they're not every single week. So that's my wondering about it.
And I'm wondering about the irregularity of it also.
It would,
As
yeah,
far
it's
as-
easy for me to know Wednesdays with the kids. The only other thing would be the half days, just childcare. I'm just curious, community, we could get some real flack for that possibly, especially the 4-day thing. I think if we ever do that, take some significant community input.
But we still with our, especially with our budget constraints, we gotta be creative on how we can do it. The staff development and to be able to get our IAs there, which is important. And you're right, it's a problem, but it's not our first responsibility necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 6-day preference from that, that Kim and I were looking at was really because if we're doing professional development, that especially with a new curriculum, that it's important that, because if you thought 3 full days, right? Okay, we'd get to meet with them for, a full day in September, but it might not be 4 months before we meet with them again, right? If you're doing good sustained professional development, you need to meet with them within 2 months after that first meeting to really be able to dig in again and have the review of how things are going, to reteach. Yes, teachers get retaught too, right? Just like we do with our students, to get retaught on some of the good habits we're learning and figure out what's not working and whatnot. So we thought that to be able to have half days but more of them would probably be better for when you're doing a new type of curriculum, because we're not just talking the curriculum itself, it's the instructional paradigm of reading, right? We're moving definitely more toward more effort on phonics and phonemic awareness pieces, which is really a lot more what I would call a systemic type training. Yeah. It's very much a lot of having to dig into some of those instructional practices that you're actually having people talk about and practice during training. So that's kind of where we were looking at with the 6 half-day model. Again, though, the committee members didn't have a consensus on that.
Yeah, and that's gonna be the tough part, and we're running up against time on getting that calendar adopted in time.
Yeah.
But get some more feedback and everything. Did
Yeah,
anybody else have any input that they wanted to get in? And
I would definitely say we don't want to go later than the first May meeting and adopting. But the good news is, because we will post this, parents will already start getting a notion of at least the important things. When is the first day of school? You know, a lot of the discretion we have now on the calendar has been taken away over the last 10, 15 years because there's so many of these days that I think people have just come to expect, right? You're starting school the Tuesday after Labor Day. There are a few districts that, believe it or not, are starting a week before, right? Generally speaking, spring break is almost always the same week because it aligns with the calendar that the universities use on a quarter system, right? Though there are a few districts that have looked at some different days there, right? You know, the mandated what's usually around October 10th, you know, the mandated state staff-wide development or statewide staff development day. You're really not going to play with that anymore. So a lot of the discretionary things are removed. Really, the big piece comes up is really what do we do with professional development?
Right.
I guess I'll be brief just because it is late. I like at least that we're looking at new options to try and get the professional development in. I'm curious about the 4-day school week. I think potentially has some other benefits. The half day, I think that would allow, you know, a substantial amount of time, but, you know, that's been one of the things that not got kind of second place, but kind of got second place. So I just appreciate the like renewed effort to like, how do we build this in with what we have? So I'm open.
Different ways to accomplish things.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it work for teachers.
Yeah.
So we'll take input, and then Kim and I will definitely work together to make sure then that input comes to you, but also if we see from the input that we're seeing that there's a tweak that needs to be made to it, we'll definitely get that out as well.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion from somebody to push our first reads to a future meeting.
I move to push all the first reads to the next board meeting. And that would include, give me a second. That'll include IGBA, IGBA-F, IGBA-FAR, IGBA-G, and then IGBA-J, IGBA-J-AR.
Second.
Been moved and second to move the first reads from tonight's agenda to our next regular board meeting. Any discussion?
Yes. Didn't we just do this the last regular board meeting we had? So we're like pushing these back further and further. I understand it's late.
We are, and it's 20 after 10.
Nope, I can't make any more decisions.
And I really don't think we get valued discussion on these.
And to the board member, if I may add, Phil, that these policies here, even though we're moving them back, the reality is you'll see there's not many changes because they really are following the federal law and IDA, the updates on there.
Correct.
So we're already having to do a lot of what's in these anyway, because just the way the law's been changed.
We're matching up with what we're doing, basically.
Yeah, and they're all required,
Right.
so
Right.
there's not a lot of flexibility
There's
on
no
these.
discretionary
Yeah.
pieces to.
It's not, there isn't a lot of discussion on these.
Yeah, you'll see there's not a lot of those choices that we had to discuss in the policy committee either, so.
Almost none. We did these in policy committee in like maybe
10
10
minutes.
minutes?
Not even.
Yeah.
Well, we have a motion on the floor,
Let's
You
vote.
do.
and it's
Yeah.
been seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of pushing the first reads off to the next meeting? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
So loud.
One opposed.
It's my
Josh,
first one.
Josh opposed. The others are in favor.
Rebel.
Okay. Public comment, do we have anyone present? Wants public comment? Anyone online?
Give me just a moment.
a
Man,
week out
but no
there.
hands raised. They've hung in there, but no hands raised.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay. Okay, entertain a motion on the July designation update.
I move to amend the July designation update to reflect that we have a new auditor.
Second?
Been moved and second to amend our designations so that it reflects that we have a new auditor, Clear Trail CPAs. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous. Out-of-state travel for the football team. Entertain a motion on that.
Move that we had approved the request for the football team to travel to Idaho.
Second.
Second.
Could you say that again, louder, Owen?
Yes, I'd move that we approve the request from the football team to travel to Idaho.
Second.
It's been seconded by Jennifer, so.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Been moved in second to approve the out-of-state travel for our football team to Idaho. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any future agenda items requests?